You know that voice, don't you? The one that whispers you can't right before you take a risk. The one that replays your past mistakes on a loop when you try to move forward. The one that sounds so rational, so protective, but whose real job is to keep you small and safe and stoppable. We think of being unstoppable as a quality of superheroes, an external force, an impenetrable shield, but that's a myth. True mental strength, the kind that cannot be stopped, isn't about building a fortress around yourself. It's not about feeling no fear. It's about developing a different relationship with the fear. It's about learning to walk alongside your doubt, your insecurity, your pain, and simply refusing to let them hold the map. So, how do we become mentally unstoppable? It begins not with a roar, but with a quiet internal shift. First, you must become the observer of your own mind. Your thoughts are not commands, they are suggestions. They are the weather patterns of your inner world, sometimes sunny, sometimes stormy, but they are not you. The unstoppable mind is the one that can sit in the quiet center of the hurricane and say, "Ah, there is a storm of anxiety, there is a downpour of self-criticism." You learn to watch the thoughts pass by like clouds, without having to grab onto every one and be carried away by it. This is your first act of sovereignty, the separation of the thinker from the thought. Second, you must curate your inner narrative. Once you are observing, you can begin to edit. You have been feeding your mind a story, perhaps for years, written by your fears, by past failures, by other people's opinions. It's time to pick up the pen. This isn't about naive positive thinking. It's about intentional, truthful thinking. When the old record starts to play, "I'm not good enough," you don't just listen. You consciously, deliberately, put on a new track. You speak to yourself with the kindness you would offer your dearest friend. You gather evidence of your own resilience. You rewrite the narrative from "I can't handle this" to "I have handled difficult things before, and I am still here." Finally, you must anchor yourself in purpose. A ship without a destination is tossed by every wave. A mind without a purpose is a hostage to every passing emotion. Your why is your ballast. It is the deep, meaningful reason that grounds you when the winds of doubt and distraction are howling. When you are connected to a purpose bigger than your immediate comfort, than your fear of judgment, you develop a different kind of endurance. The criticism still stings, the failure still hurts, but it doesn't derail you. Because the pull of your purpose is stronger than the push of your pain. Becoming mentally unstoppable is not about becoming hard. It is about becoming fluid. It is about being like water, able to flow around obstacles, to wear down resistance over time, to adapt to any container, and yet, with a relentless, quiet force, always moving toward the ocean of your destiny. The foundational principle of becoming mentally unstoppable is perhaps the most challenging and transformative of all. You are not your thoughts. This concept requires a radical internal shift in perception. We live our lives under the constant dictatorship of an internal monologue, a ceaseless stream of commentary, judgment, fear, and desire. We have become so fused with this mental chatter that we mistake it for our core identity. We believe "I am angry," when the more precise truth is, "I am experiencing the sensation of anger." We declare "I am a failure," when the reality is, "A thought about failure has arisen in my mind." This fusion is the source of our storability. When a thought appears, "This is too hard," "I'm going to embarrass myself," "I can't do this," we treat it as an unchangeable fact, an executive order from the command center of our being. We obey it without question, allowing it to dictate our actions, limit our potential, and define our reality. The first and most critical step toward mental sovereignty is to create a space between the thinker and the thought. Imagine your consciousness as the vast, open sky, constant, boundless, and unchanging. Your thoughts, then, are the weather that moves through this sky. Some days are sunny and clear with thoughts of joy and confidence. Other days are dark and stormy with thoughts of anxiety and despair. The weather can be turbulent, violent, and overwhelming, but no matter how fierce the storm, the sky itself is never damaged. It does not cling to the storm clouds or try to push them away. It simply holds the space for them to pass. The storm is a condition in the sky, but it is not the sky itself. This is the power of the observer. When you learn to observe your thoughts without immediately identifying with them, you reclaim your power. You move from being a prisoner trapped in the storm to being the sky that witnesses it. A thought arises, you are not good enough. Instead of absorbing this as truth and allowing it to trigger a cascade of feelings, shame, defeat, resignation, you can simply note it. You can say to yourself, "Ah, I notice the not good enough story has arrived again." This act of naming it, of witnessing it, robs the thought of its destructive power. It becomes an object in your awareness, not the subject of your identity. This does not mean the thought disappears. The storm may still rage, but you are no longer drowning in the rain. You are watching it from a place of shelter. From this place of observation, you gain choice. When you are fused with your thoughts, you have no choice but to act them out. When you are separate from them, you can evaluate them. You can ask, is this thought helpful? Is it true? Is it based on evidence? Or is it just an old, fearful recording playing on a loop? You begin to see your mind not as a source of absolute truth, but as a tool, a powerful, creative, and sometimes malfunctioning tool that requires gentle management. This is the birthplace of true mental freedom. It is the realization that you are the awareness behind the noise, the consciousness that perceives the thought, and that which can perceive a thing cannot be that thing. You are not the storm, you are the sky. And the sky, by its very nature, is unstoppable. Once you have established that crucial distance from your thoughts, you move from a passive recipient of your inner world to its active architect. You realize that the narrative running in your mind is not a fixed, unchangeable text, but a draft, one that you have the power and the responsibility to edit. This is not an exercise in self-deception or in reciting hollow, positive affirmations that you don't believe. That would be like putting a fresh coat of paint on a termite-infested wall. The underlying structure remains weak and will eventually collapse. True mental rewriting is a process of intentional, evidence-based curation. It is the disciplined practice of challenging the old, fear-based scripts and consciously authoring a new, more accurate and empowering story. Think of your mind as a garden that has been left untended for years. Weeds of self, doubt, vines of past criticism, and thorns of limitation have grown thick and wild. The first step of observation was simply walking into the garden and seeing what was there without immediately panicking. The second step is the meticulous work of gardening. You cannot just wish the weeds away. You must get your hands dirty. You must identify each negative, limiting belief, grasp it firmly by the root, and pull it out. This is the work of cognitive reframing. When the thought arises, "I always fail at this," you don't just let it pass, you stop it, you challenge it. You gather the counter evidence. Is that absolutely true? Did I always fail? What about the time I succeeded, even partially? What did I learn from the times I didn't succeed? After uprooting the weed, you must then plant a new seed. This is the practice of affirmation, but not as it's commonly misunderstood. An effective affirmation is not a magical incantation. It is a deliberate, present-tense statement that is both aspirational and grounded in a kernel of truth. It is a statement of who you are choosing to become. If the old narrative is, "I am not a confident speaker," the new seed isn't the jarring and unbelievable, "I am the world's greatest orator." The new seed is a manageable, truthful step forward. "I am growing more confident in expressing my ideas with each opportunity." You are not lying to yourself. You are directing yourself. You are programming your subconscious with a new set of instructions, watering that seed with repetition, visualization, and most importantly, with action that aligns with the new story. Every time you speak up in a meeting, you are providing proof for this new narrative. This is how you build a resilient self-concept. The story is no longer based on the random, often critical, feedback of the external world, but on the internal, curated narrative you have built with intention and reinforced with your own choices. The unstoppable mind is not one that never hears the voice of doubt. It is the mind that has trained a stronger, kinder, and more truthful voice to answer back. A ship in a storm, no matter how well built, is at the mercy of the waves if it has no destination. It will be tossed, turned, and driven onto the rocks by the sheer force of the tempest. Its survival is a matter of chance, dependent on the storm's mercy, but a ship with a fixed course, a clear port it is determined to reach, behaves differently. It still battles the same waves, endures the same wind, and faces the same peril. Yet it is not passive. The helmsman fights the wheel, adjusting the sails, using the very force of the storm to steer a course, however turbulent, toward its destination. The purpose, the why, is the ballast in its hull and the North Star in the sky. It is what provides the resilience to endure the chaos, because the pain of the journey is contextualized by the value of the destination. Your mind operates on the same principle. Emotions are the weather, distractions are the cross-currents, criticism and failure are the pounding waves. Without a deep, internalized sense of purpose, you are the ship without a destination. Your mental state becomes reactive, a mere reflection of your immediate circumstances. A negative comment ruins your week. A small setback sends you spiraling. You are stoppable because you have no deeper why to anchor you to something beyond the temporary discomfort. Your purpose is not a vague desire for happiness or success. These are fleeting states, not compelling directions. A true purpose is a conviction. It is the answer to the question, what is the meaningful impact I feel called to make? What problem ignites a fire in me to solve? What version of the world or of myself am I willing to endure discomfort to build? When this purpose is clear, it transforms your relationship with adversity. The obstacles do not disappear, but their meaning changes. They are no longer random acts of a cruel universe designed to break you. They become challenges on the path to your destination. The pain of learning a new skill is no longer just pain. It is the price of mastery required for your mission. The sting of rejection is no longer a verdict on your worth. It is a redirection toward an audience that is ready for your gift. The fear of stepping onto a stage is no longer a signal to run. It is the prelude to sharing a message that matters. Your purpose becomes the filter through which you process every experience. It allows you to endure greater hardship because the hardship is in service of something you have deemed profoundly important. It provides a kind of psychological immunity. The trivial distractions of life lose their power to derail you because they are irrelevant to your course. The pull of your why becomes a gravitational force stronger than the push of your fear, your doubt, or your temporary pain. You become unstoppable not because you are immune to the storm, but because you have a reason to sail through it that is greater than your reason to stay in safe harbor. The conventional image of mental strength is one of rigid, unyielding hardness. We are told to toughen up, to build a thick skin, to become an emotional fortress that cannot be penetrated. This model, however, is fundamentally flawed. A fortress may be strong, but it is also brittle. It cannot adapt. When a force arrives that is greater than its structural integrity, it does not bend, it shatters. The truly unstoppable mind does not aspire to be a fortress. It strives to be like water. Consider the profound properties of water. It is the softest and most yielding of substances, yet it is arguably the most powerful force of change on the planet. It possesses a resilient strength that is fluid, adaptable, and relentless. Water never argues with an obstacle. It does not waste energy trying to smash through a rock head on. Instead, it simply flows around it. Over time, it may wear the rock down, not through brute force, but through persistent, gentle pressure. It can adapt to any container, a cup, a riverbank, a vast ocean, filling the space available without losing its essential nature. When faced with an immovable object, it pools its resources, waits for the right moment, and continues its inevitable journey toward the sea. This is the essence of mental fluidity. It is the ability to flow around the obstacles of life, the rejected proposal, the unexpected illness, the harsh criticism, without allowing them to break your spirit. It is the capacity to adapt your strategy without abandoning your core purpose. The rigid mind, when its plan fails, experiences a catastrophic collapse. My way is blocked, therefore I am a failure. The fluid mind simply observes, this path is closed, I will find another. It is a mindset of options, not ultimatums. This fluidity is not a lack of conviction. Water is still water, whether it is a tranquil lake or a raging waterfall. Your core values and purpose remain your constant. The fluidity is in your methods, your reactions, and your perspective. It is the willingness to be wrong, to learn, and to change course. It is the emotional intelligence to feel anger without being consumed by it, to feel fear without being paralyzed by it. You allow the emotion to flow through you, you learn its message, and then you let it go, returning to your essential state. To become water is to embrace a resilient, enduring strength. It is to understand that sometimes the most powerful response is not to stand firm and resist, but to yield temporarily, to absorb the impact, and to find a new way forward. It is to trust in your own nature so deeply that you are not threatened by change or challenge. You know that, like water, you may be deflected, delayed, or divided, but you cannot be ultimately contained or stopped. Your destiny is the ocean, and you will, by your very nature, find a way to reach it. This relentless, adaptable flow is the mark of a mind that is truly unstoppable. The ultimate transformation on the journey to becoming mentally unstoppable is a shift in identity. Most people live their lives as if they are a character in a story written by circumstance, genetics, or other people's expectations. The plot unfolds and they react, sometimes well, sometimes poorly, but they are fundamentally passive, waiting to see what will happen to them next. They see challenges, failures, and setbacks as definitive evaluations of their character, permanent labels etched into their identity by an unseen author. This is the essence of being stoppable. You believe the external world holds the pen. To become unstoppable is to realize a profound and liberating truth. You are not the character, you are the author. The circumstances of your life, the thoughts in your head, the emotions in your heart, these are not you. They are the elements of your story, the setting, the plot twists, the conflicts. But the power to interpret these events, to assign them meaning, and to decide what happens next rests solely in your hands. A rejection is not an author writing the end on your dreams. It is a plot point you get to integrate into your narrative. You can write it as a tragedy that concludes your ambition, or you can write it as the inciting incident that sends your character on a quest for growth, learning, and a new, more resilient strategy. This authorial mindset changes everything. When you are the author, you are never a victim of your past. The previous chapters, no matter how painful, become backstory, essential for depth and motivation, but not determinative of the ending. A difficult childhood is not a life sentence, it is an origin story. A past failure is not a permanent stain, it is a crucial lesson that equipped your character with wisdom for the climax. You can look at the messy, chaotic, and often painful drafts of your life and begin to edit. You can reframe the narrative, you can choose which details to emphasize and which to release. You can decide that the story is not about your wounds, but about your healing, not about your failures, but about your perseverance. This does not mean the writing is easy. Authors face writer's block. They struggle with difficult scenes and complex character development. They sometimes write themselves into corners. The unstoppable author knows this is part of the process. They don't abandon the book. They take a walk, they gather new inspiration, they backspace, and they try again. They understand that the power is not in avoiding difficulty, but in holding the absolute authority to write through it. When you fully embrace this identity, fear loses its final weapon. The fear of failure is just the anxiety of writing a bad chapter, not of ruining the entire book. The fear of judgment is merely worrying about a critic's review, knowing that you, and you alone, hold the copyright to your soul. You begin to walk through the world with the quiet, unshakable confidence of a creator. You meet each challenge not with the question, "Why is this happening to me?" but with the empowered curiosity of an author. This is an interesting development for my character. How will I write my way through this? What does this reveal about who I am becoming? The story is yours to write. And an author who knows their own voice is truly, fundamentally, unstoppable.